Willkommen, bienvenue and welcome back to Duncombe House Diaries. It has only been a fortnight, but good gracious, we've missed you terribly. Thank you for nourishing us with your subscriptions and your comments. It is awfully kind of you. In our last episode, I asked you all what you'd like to see more of, and the answer overwhelmingly was everything. Well, ladies and gentlemen, be careful what you wish for. We've started to feel positively festive up at Duncombe House since we last spoke, and I can't lie, we have been unapologetically extravagant with our decorations this year. Absolutely no expense has been spared in creating an exquisite Christmas scene. YouTube is awash with fabulous displays of decorative Christmas opulence at the moment, and I'm sure you will agree our offering is well up there with the best. Our most patrician indulgence is this magnificent Norway spruce. A house is simply not a home at Christmas without a tree, in my opinion. We were very excited to adorn our front door with a festive wreath. However, we soon remembered that we don't actually have a front door at the moment. However, one must do one's best with what one has. We have a running joke at Duncombe House that whenever we need something, it seems to appear by magic from some cupboard or other. Well, thankfully, Christmas has been no exception. And after some rooting around in the billiard room, we found these positively scintillating antique glass baubles, some fabulous oriental string lights, and a whole host of other festive fancies from the past. In years to come, when we are slightly more established, we cannot wait to incorporate these terribly unique Christmas treasures into our festive ensemble. We decided it would be awfully prudent to leave out our stockings on the fireplace, just in case Santa did decide to wriggle down our new flue and leave us some presents. Santa Claus, if you're listening, all I want for Christmas is a reduction in mortgage rates. So, in this episode's instalment of Questionable DIY, I'm going to be touching on the installation of our fabulous new log burner. Now, I know what you're thinking. Good gracious, what would possibly compel them to install a brand new log burner so early on in the project lifecycle when the generation of dust and mess has only just begun? Well, there's a very simple answer. It's absolutely chuffing freezing in here. Yes, that's my breath you can see. Inside the house. The aforementioned biblical flood was due to fresh water pipes freezing up in the loft and ejecting a plethora of Staffordshire's finest mineral water into the house. After that, therefore, the central heating system simply could not be trusted and has been decommissioned to be replaced in its entirety at a later date. In consequence, we presently have absolutely no sources of heat in our solid stone, terribly damp, 200-year-old house, which is not just awfully unpleasant for us, but it's awfully unpleasant for the building itself. Enter our 12-kilowatt La Nordica monster. Now, previously, there was an Aga in this alcove, but it had been sadly destroyed by the flood, and the sodden vermiculite and corrosion had rendered it totally unusable. So after much heaving, we eventually managed to lug the old sausage out of the house, remove the tiles, and reveal the somewhat original brickwork. There have been myriad tasks in order to get ready for the new log burner. We've had the chimney swept, we've vacuumed and then sealed these bricks, we've laid a new hearth, and after removing the old flue have installed a shiny new one, which will be adequate for the size of the log burner we are installing. Now, as anyone who owns an old house will know, dust seems to be a perpetual demon. So after a good brush and a vacuum, I sealed these bricks with this supposedly miraculous product. Now, 10 points to Gryffindor if you can tell what tune I'm tapping. Now, of course, we could have redone all of this brickwork, or perhaps tiled it again. but we hate to let common sense get in the way of a good aesthetic. Some of these bricks that have been used on this opening are actually from the old Kellwich Abbey dairy, and one can tell from their white glazing. And although to many it may seem totally preposterous to leave the brickwork in this seemingly dilapidated state, we prefer to look at it as keeping a piece of history. The stone hearth we carefully selected from our little Duncombe House reclamation yard. This stone, incredibly, is actually from the platform of the original Derby train station, which was demolished in 1985 and replaced with this monstrosity in an egregious crime against architecture. Jazzy's father, who was an exceptional man and had an enviable eye for reclamation, saved these flagstones for a rainy day, and we are delighted to have been able to use them in the boot room. Removing the old flue was actually easier than we thought, and after knocking off the terribly degraded flaunch and carefully removing the remaining bonnet pot, we have been left with a lovely clean surface in order to install our new flue. We will be able to replace the pots, one bonnet and one king, so that the stacks are returned to their former glory. Installing the new flue, however, was far harder than we thought, and took us just over 3 hours of huffing, puffing, wiggling, jiggling and twisting. But eventually, between our roofer Driv, our multi-talented Freddy, and myself, we wiggled that slippery sausage into place. Naturally, nothing in life is as simple as one hopes, and before we can finish off the installation of the log burner, we are just waiting on some special flue adapter pipe to help us compensate for the fact that the current chimney hole is not in the middle of the register plate. Of course it's not. That would make far too much common sense. So, hopefully, by the time we post our next video, it will be so hot in the boot room that I'll be wearing nothing but my Speedo, sipping on a pastis, and imagining that I'm in Villefranche. Naturally, on a project like this, there are many threads being weaved at once. We've also been working away getting our lovely front door fixed primarily so that we can attach that wreath. The joiners have been joining. Top tip for you here: if you can find tradespeople that when it rains, instead of going home, put up a gazebo, then pay them whatever they ask for. These chaps are artists. The roofer has been repairing our leaking valley and replacing all of our rotten joist ends. All in all, December has been surprisingly busy at Duncombe House, but more to come on all of those things in later videos. Quincy has been in absolutely fine fettle recently. She seems revitalised by having so many tradespeople around the house. Probably because, despite us telling them over and over again not to feed her, she seems to constantly have either sausage roll or shortbread crumbs around her mouth. Her and Bree had a fabulous time frolicking in the snow. They really do get on like a house on fire. She was able to meet our two lovely new cats, Dean and Borgia, for the first time. I was always under the impression that cats were meant to be scared and run away from dogs, not the other way round, but as I'm sure you'll have gathered by now, Quincy is not your average dog. She's filled her time recently pottering in the mountains of leaves, contemplating life on the lawn, trotting around like she owns the place, and resting in the most unladylike of fashions. I fear it may be nigh on impossible for me to explain to those not from England the utter pandemonium caused when snow visits us here. To countries accustomed to the cold weather, the total collapse of all of our public services and the loss of all decent sensibilities on the arrival of snow here must be terribly confusing. For those of you ill-acquainted with the UK, please allow me to explain. I'm not entirely sure whether or not we get taught it maybe subliminally at school, but every time it snows here, we all have to act as if we've never seen it before in our entire lives, and quite often total chaos ensues. Generally speaking, us Brits are fairly stoical and rather proud of our nonchalance and stiff upper lip, so the hysteria demonstrated when snow arrives is terribly difficult for me to explain. If any of my fellow countrymen or countrywomen have an explanation, please do be forthcoming with it in the comments. I would love to hear your perspective. For the purposes of this video, however, I would simply like to share with you the astonishing beauty which snow can add to any scene, and its magical effect in turning a building site into something positively festive and ethereal. So until next time, when we all pretend we've never seen snow before, and once again lose our tiny little minds, I say to you, snow, TTFN. Now, some people like to bake. Some people like to play golf. Some people even like to watch football for some unfathomable reason. In my spare time, of which I have increasingly little, I like to dig holes in muddy fields. I thought it might be fun to share with you all a little bit of real-life treasure hunting, as I spend an afternoon metal detecting in the garden at Duncombe House. Now, I've only been enjoying this delightful little hobby for a few years now, but I've been blessed with some lovely finds. I am absolutely convinced that somewhere in our garden will be a pot of hidden Georgian sovereigns. And although I didn't find them in this outing, I did find some other particularly interesting and peculiar items which I know all of you history lovers will adore. Now, Jazzy actually purchased this metal detector for me very kindly as a present, under the understanding that she had first dibs on anything valuable that I might find. Luckily for me, I've never found anything valuable. For those of you new to metal detecting, let me give you a quick down low on what accoutrements are required. One requires a metal detector. A probe is useful. A trowel comes in handy. A little bag to keep all your goodies in, and a suitably ridiculous outfit. High visibility is of course optional, but you'll know by now how much we adore health and safety here at Duncombe House. I was lucky enough to spend the entire afternoon walking backwards and forwards looking for treasures. There really are few feelings like it when you get the magical bibbidi bibbidi bibbidi, and there's the potential of digging up a 12th century hoard or a bejeweled Viking helmet. On this occasion, however, I was lucky enough to find the following priceless pieces of history. First up, some shotgun cartridge brass. We had the better half of a pewter teaspoon, some sheep dye, this lovely little 22 bullet. Now this piece of lead is the bane of the metal detectorists, as it always shows up like something fantastic, but then 9 times out of 10 it's not. However, I'm going to pretend that this one is actually a mid-20th century sculpture of an octopus to make myself feel better. I found some actual, real, genuine money. 2 pennies in total. That's Britannia on one side and Victoria and Edward on the other. The one on the left is from 1877 and on the right 1910. Gorgeous little finds. There are 2 musket balls. Interestingly enough, there was a lot of English Civil War activity around Duncombe House because it's so close to Wootton Lodge. And finally, this fantastic fairies bathtub. All in all, an extraordinarily auspicious day in the field. Now, I thought it might be fun in these little YouTube videos to share with you all a few bits and bobs from our life away from Duncombe House, just to give you all a little perspective and insight into who we are and what makes us us. If this is far too much information, please do let me know and I will happily omit it from future episodes. We were extremely fortunate recently to be invited to the High Sheriff of St Albans Justice Service at St Albans Abbey. The High Sheriff Annie Brewster is the dearest of friends, and she is doing quite groundbreaking work during her tenure as High Sheriff. St Albans Cathedral itself is an absolute marvel, and somewhere that I would implore any of you to visit if you ever get the chance. Naturally, it being Christmas and all, we've also had to decorate the tree back at our other home, which, thanks to pesky old photosynthesis, is getting more and more challenging each year. Luckily, my godbrother Steve has incredibly good stick skills, and between the two of us, the tree was illuminated in no time at all. We also took a brief but terribly enjoyable trip to Londinium weekend last. Whilst I took the opportunity to meet up with some old chums and hunt for terrazzo marble floors, love, Jazzy visited the fantastic Battersea Power Station. We were also able to enjoy some of the spectacular Christmas decorations on show in the capital, and as always absorb and appreciate the absolutely unique history and architecture of London. We had a passive peruse for potential future projects, although in the end we both decided that if we do get another house, it will simply have to be abroad. Trips to London always cement for me the old adage that under absolutely no circumstances whatsoever can money buy one good taste. We had a delightful brunch before hopping on the AMR home. Sadly, they've moved the croque monsieur to the lunch menu at Cersei's, so I had to settle for the Eggs Benedict. Luckily, the hollandaise didn't disappoint, and I was adequately sustained to manage the journey home. Before we got too overwhelmed by metropolitan folly, we returned home to the comfort of deepest, darkest Staffordshire in order to support our terribly hard-working farming community at the Ashbourne Christmas Tractor Light Procession. Each year, our stalwart local farmers adorn their tractors with the most excellent of decorations and visit all manner of local villages across Staffordshire and Derbyshire in order to raise money for charity. This year, they were raising money for Cancer Research UK, a terribly fine charity and one awfully close to our hearts. The good people of Ashbourne turned out in their droves to watch the seemingly never-ending land train of tractors adorned in the most creative of festive embellishments. If anyone feels compelled to donate, and there is absolutely no pressure whatsoever, I have attached the link in the show notes below for you. Thank you ever so much for joining us yet again here at Duncombe House. I cannot emphasise enough how grateful we are to you for your time, your support and your nourishing comments. You are making this journey infinitely more bizarre and infinitely more enjoyable for us. We will be back before you know it with another episode, so please do, as always, comment below what you would like to see more of, and as always, I will aim to please. Ladies and gentlemen, let us wish you the warmest and merriest of Christmases and happiest of New Years. TTFN.